yeah, you got me. So
Other
they
than the
definitely
larger
made it.
scale L's that the North American scene as a whole takes each and every day.
Yep. My bad.
What's going on, everybody? Welcome to tonight's episode of The Salt Mine. This is, oh no, I didn't even check. This is season 4, episode
70?
17? 17.
70?
17.
Okay,
We might be. I have no idea what episode number we're on overall. I know I had a perfect opportunity to do this. I just transferred 3 seasons of The Salt Mine onto a flash drive and off my hard drive. Incredibly freeing experience, by the way. I have so much space now for activities, but I did not go in and count episodes or anything. I guess you could look at like number of videos uploaded to the Salt Mine YouTube or something, and subtract out a couple of VODs from before we had the VODs channel, and find your way to the right number. But it's not something that's important to do right now. It's episode 17 for season 4, where we are substantially deeper into ACL playoffs. We missed last week's episode. We were over on our crossover with Salty Runback for the NACL preseason. If you haven't seen that, go check it out. We're on there. Some of our takes age very well. Some of our takes age very poorly. One of those takes that ages very poorly is Mr. TDS drafting a team at all representing Cincinnati Fear, a team that we have now found will not be in the 2025 NACL, and that their own staff have found out very last minute will not be in the 2025 NACL. So,
yeah,
little tiny disaster there for Cincinnati Fear. I mean, a real heartbreaker for those who've been following the NACL since its inception. This is one of the last original teams there, and with AOE departing as well, we are now on 0 original teams left, if I'm not mistaken. Supernova can kind of desperately cling to being almost there, but still not quite. So, thoughts on Cincinnati Fear's departure?
Well, I think it is pretty heartbreaking, but I feel like the adjective I would use to describe it is more or less like discouraging. Like I tweeted about this the day that or rather the night, after it was announced, but I said something along the lines of like, this has been kind of a year or a season or whatever you want to call it, full of like a message and an overwhelming response by Riot that you can be like potentially the best in your field. And I think Cincinnati Fear was one of the best in their field, right? Like across this year in tier 2, like they got second in 2 tournaments. They had a ton of really unique players. They had a very unique brand as well. Like everything was going right for them. And yet they got dropped, or rather they didn't get dropped, but they weren't able to continue. And I feel like that just kind of goes to show that like you can be one of the best in your field and you still aren't promised, I believe I said you aren't promised a tomorrow, much less a better one, which is, it extends beyond just teams and organizations, right? Like we saw this with the LPL English broadcast, which of course is now, at least reports are saying that it's going to be like a fan-made sort of thing or run by fans, which is good. But like a lot of these really historic a lot of these historic organizations and a lot of these historic programs are simply being dropped because you have to make room for money. And it's just not sustainable, which I think is just discouraging to more than teams. It's discouraging to casters. It's discouraging to staff that were laid off at Cincinnati Fear due to this decision. It's discouraging to players who may just randomly get dropped and, find out that they don't have a team to play for next season. It continues to get worse. And frankly, this one really upset me.
Yeah, this one broke my heart. I love a lot of the guys over at Fear. It was awesome to meet all the socials guys, Maddie and Jordan at NACL finals.
Yep, Jay Chong said hi to me.
Yeah. So I mean, like meeting those guys was super cool. So it's like personal space in my heart. And then looking at what you're talking about, Quax, like this is just like kind of a spit in the face for tier 2 again. It's recycling the same tweets of guys. Remember, this is like not sustainable at all unless Riot starts helping because it's a development league where there's no money. And you could go back and look across, like, Quax, you point out the recent success, obviously, in 2024, but, like, even when they first joined the league, right?
Mhm.
They debuted guys like, they were able to debut guys, I believe, like Shochi, and have success. Like they foster a lot of the talent that ended up really becoming a lot bigger in the NACL, and they're able to, finish fourth in their first spring playoffs. Then they finished summer with a third. So like these guys are one split outside the podium as like as homegrown of an org as you can really get, running through the old proving grounds qualifiers. And to see and going to Brazil, right? Like they went to Brazil and performed as the best team of an A in Tier 2 in Brazil. Like you could argue a couple of Varus snipes away from potentially winning the whole thing.
Don't
So
mind me, man.
yeah, I know it stinks, but it just sucks out that like none of that actually ends up mattering because money wasn't there. Money talks most, I guess.
And I think it even sucks harder because Valorant recently, I believe, announced like more revenue going over toward their tier 2 scene, if I'm not mistaken. And so like a lot of people, a decent amount of people from the LOL scene retweeted that and were like, well, where the fuck is our money, right? Because like you're based in LA, or no, you're not even based in LA. Tier 2 is completely remote, so you're already super duper like low cost, super low budget, like players are getting paid McChickens and they're still playing, and somehow that's still not feasible, which I think is like realistically, what else are you gonna cut? Like, are you gonna I really don't understand kind of what more can be done from the org's side, at least in terms of saving. Riot really, in my opinion, just needs to get in there and help out tier 2, because as it stands, like it's just straight up not sustainable. Like you can do everything right financially, and it feels like you were just doomed to fail right from the start. And what does that say to like new orgs, right, who want to join in the tier 2 ecosystem and potentially promote up into the LTA one day? We recently had NTR, right, who is very similar to Cincinnati Fear, now start in the tier 3 scene,
Nightmare,
and hopefully, one day. Or Nightmare. I didn't actually know that's what they were called.
It's NTMR, and it's supposed to be like
NTMMR.
Nightmare.
My bad.
Yeah.
No.
Yeah, but like this is an organization that I'm actually really hoping succeeds, because it is a vestige of or it is like the last vestige of a mindset that I feel like is going to start dwindling, which is to try and actually get to higher heights regardless of money. Because now money, like you said, Slayer, it just talks it shouts way louder than anything else.
Yeah, so it's very funny, first of all, that when one purple skeleton organization falls, a new purple skeleton organization must rise. Nightmare looking like a parody of the Cincinnati Fear logo a little bit there, but it's fun. It's cute.
Fear.
I like it. And they're coming into the NACL on a little bit more positive of a note. The first piece of news with them, other than the rumored Dokla signing, the first real piece of news that comes out on them, the first like kind of decision point, is that they have elected to allow Shaden to go buyout free over to Dignitas to go pro, which I think is a great move for them. I mean, Cincinnati Fear's first move coming into the league was unceremoniously dropping Pukar right before the season started. So definitely a better start for Nightmare than for Cincy Fear here. But I do think, I think, Quax, you get at this a little bit. It's really, the Cincinnati Fear departure is emblematic of a pattern that I worry might repeat again with orgs like Nightmare, where you get this sort of whiplash where instead of kind of spending at a steadier, smaller rate over the long term, you see these orgs try to spend more, get the more expensive rosters, be, in that top 3, top 4 spender category, and then when they either don't find the results, or in Cincy Fear's case, basically do find the results and find that the results don't really bring with it profitability, then that goes straight to zero, and you get this kind of whiplash throughout the whole scene with what the wages look like. I know I've heard and had some conversations about there's going to be some players in this split who are going to be very disappointed and might not even be playing at all. Because they are not pleased with the way that the salaries are shaking on out. And you got to do what you got to do based on what your requirements are to keep on living. But definitely think this feeds into that problem. And I don't know if it needs to be Riot coming in to boost up funding, but I would at least like to see the LTA teams take a little bit more interest in doing this.
Yeah, like Cloud9 partnering with Blue Otter, I think I don't know how much help they actually got from C9, like gifted to them, but like a partnership like that, I feel like can be really, really encouraging. And kind of back to your point, Gordo, about what you said with the orgs and like they're going to be spending more. Now they have way more reason to spend more, right? Because unlike this year, next year you have a good enough roster. And guess what? You get into the LTA, and we're seeing that with like Luminosity. They obviously had like money on money on money, like shit stacks of cash, but it feels like teams are going to look at that, set a standard for themselves, and be like, okay, we have got to develop a roster that can beat this if we want to go into the NAC or go into the LTA when they don't necessarily have the money to do so. So that is my really big concern, that instead of having a stable tier 2 system, it's just going to be orgs and teams and people from potentially OQs just recycling over and over and then crashing and burning if they don't, find success in maybe 1 to 2 splits.
And that's why I want that like additional investment from the LTA teams, it's very I still probably will not talk about this too in depth until we start really getting into NACL preseason. I don't want to eat up too much time on what is going to be a much more in-depth conversation, but it's one of those things there, FlyQuest and TL both depart. They both say that they now want to partner with orgs instead. I really do hope, especially in Papa Smithy's Twit Longer and stuff, not even a Twit Longer, Twitter just lets you pay and post Twit Longers on main Twitter now. But Papa Smithy's tweet talking about how like it's circumstances, not budget, that seems to have pushed them out. At least that's the position he's taking publicly. So I would really like to see some money where their mouths are there. And if both FlyQuest and TL, if you are still committed and you would still be in this league if Riot let you promote and sell, or if the format was exactly the same as it was this year, like the communication from both these orgs seems to be implying if one of those were the case, they would still be here. They're not here because they feel that the new system is structured against them. I have my own issues with that. I'll talk about them in the future. But if that is the truth, then put your money where your mouth is a little bit here and
help
give some
NACL
real funding into the NACL, not just a name sponsor, not just they get to talk with your coaches on a Discord from time to time. Like get some real like investment in here, because what frustrates me more than anything is seeing orgs that clearly do have the budget to make a real difference in NACL, and they just blow it on other garbage. Like I'm very frustrated with how Shopify handled 2024, where they paid an LTA minimum salary to Tomio to play him for 4 games, and
booted him.
Like just take that whole LTA salary that you paid to a 6th man, split it up 5 or 6 ways, and you are making a substantial difference in an NACL team's salaries. Yeah,
Yep.
I would much, much rather see some kind of agreement come through like that and say, here, you're going to take the budget of 1 substitute player, you're going to divide that up as you choose to pay salaries for these players. We get roster input, and we get first dibs on you guys are our sub squad. Like, I feel like that, and if there's other rules in the way preventing that on Riot's end, then those roadblocks need to be removed. I think that's the most likely way, other than Riot just dumping a bunch of money into into NACL, that we're going to see a more sustainable model here. Like teams actually kind of taking some responsibility for developing their own futures.
Yeah, and
I agree.
And that one is like the more likely one, because there's just no way Riot dumps money back into a tier 2 development league, so it's really got to be the teams.
Yeah, I mean, who knows? Maybe enough people will purchase the Exalted Jinx skin for $250, and they'll be able to put some of that toward tier 2. I don't know. I know a couple of people who actually dumped some money into that and got the skin. So if I know a couple of people, I don't know a lot of people, then who knows? Could be a thing. But no, I do still think though that the rosters that are possible now, like I will say this, with tier 1 and tier 2 no longer, or rather just tier 2 period, not really giving like salaries that are necessarily livable, I think that this makes another thing super duper competitive and something that is super duper interesting, in my opinion, the better path to pro, which is CLOL, right? Because we're seeing now a ton of people say, all right, well, shit, I can't go into NACL, but I can at least get a degree and play competitive League of Legends, and I can have kind of the best of both worlds. And that is where I think we can maybe talk about some good news, Gordo, which is the Maryville roster.
I'm almost tempted to not even call it good news, because what it means
I
for our
think it's
mid
good
lane
news.
pool, it is good news for the players objectively. Love
Yeah.
to see Maryville investing in their next generation here. So for those who don't know, they pick up Shimmer, Toasty, and Sajed to round out their team for the foreseeable future. The concern that I expressed there is they now have Spyrex and Toasty. I would say two
And
of
Get
the
Back
and get
as well.
okay. But I would say two of the three probably top mid laners in the NACL for 2025, especially with Young throwing his career away on a certain team, and Roamer almost certainly going to be going unsigned here. I don't think anyone's going to be paying for Roamer, at least enough for him to be willing to stay in North America. So. This is two of the best mid laners, two of who should be the best mid laners in our league, both now repping the same flag, and very likely only one of them going to be playing in the NACL in any given week.
Yeah. But yeah. I mean, on the first side, like, I guess Niles put this together, like, whew, swung for the fences, hit the home run. I mean, like, these are, I think the way I phrased it in the tweet was like, you could very easily argue that the two best next up and comers in like the tier 2 space that fit like the young prodigy sort of role are Toasty and Sajed. So the fact you're throwing them all on the same team, absolutely nasty. Heard great things about Shimmer as well. I think the situation that Shimmer is going to be put into is most important, even if he does have to sit behind Yuji, which is also something that is worth mentioning.
That's a good thing, though.
It is a good thing. It is. I mean, I'm sure he'd want to play, but like, who knows? He might even have to start. Like, we don't even know. All we know is that currently Yuji is still listed on the roster with Maryville as well, so he'll get to sit behind them. But like, yeah, this is going to be funny because like we now have like the villain. Not really, but like kind of the villain that is LG, right? And maybe like Nightmare that's gonna if they're really gonna put a team around Dokla as good as Dokla is, like those are gonna be like the villains, right? It's like
I'm hearing some rumors
villains
on
of
their
tier
roster.
2.
It's going to be big.
Yeah, okay. So we've
I've
got two
heard
big
some stuff
villains,
too.
right? We got the LG villains, which is just like, is that disguise or is this Shopify Rebellion? Why are they in tier 2? And then whatever the hell Nightmare's about to come out with, and then we have the good guys, who's gonna be Maryville, because like this is the tier 2 super team, right? Like this
I don't
is
know about that
last
one.
year.
I consider Shimmer to be like, he gives off major anti-hero energy, like Venom or some shit.
Yeah, but yeah, I'm just saying, like, if it is
no,
gonna be Zamudo, Yuji,
I just have to be a dick.
Yeah, yeah. If it's like Zamudo, Yuji, Toasty, Sajed, and Zyka, like those are the tier 2 heroes. So it's gonna be fun to see if we roll with this storyline once we get to the NACL, expecting the teams that are this stacked to promote in from the Okies as well. Like, Maryville's gonna get a big bump. I hope they lean into like that storyline, because we've got some like bot fancy looking supercars that are pulling up into a race that like they have no business being in. It's like the Lightning McQueen meme, the Cars meme, Cars 3, where I don't remember the name of the like electric car just zooms past him. It's like that's the bad guy. New generation bad guy. It's like, oh, nobody wants that guy to win.
Yeah, I will say, I think that like for sure, if I'm Maryville, if I'm going on an educated guess here, or if I'm going on what I think would most likely succeed for Maryville going into the next year, I would say you probably start. Well, I mean, obviously you're going to probably start Sajed. I would imagine Sajed is going to be in there, right? And then you've got, I would say you could probably split time between Spyrax and Toasty, and just kind of see how it works. 100% though, I think that Shimmer should be behind Yuji, at least for a split. Like, I feel like if I'm Maryville, I think that Shimmer has a shitload of promise as a player. Mechanically, he's one of the best players in Tier 3. But I do think that this guy can go a little too deep. Like, we saw this on Supernova Dark Matter. We saw this all throughout OQs in 2024. This guy has the mechanics of a beast, but he does lack a little bit, I think, in the macro department. And I do think Yuji is obviously got the mechanics, but his biggest strength is how smart he is about pathing. So I would say fucking strap Shimmer down to a chair for like a semester, sit him 3 feet behind Yuji, glue his eyes to the screen, and have him watch Yuji for like a semester. And then if he shows promise, you can put him in, around like the fall semester of next year. But I do think for the time being, Shimmer he's just too raw. I think for the caliber that Marivel are looking to compete at in 2025, at least for the start.
I wouldn't be surprised though if we see some of those CLO North games where, like CLO North, like those regular season. I'll just call it regular season. Like that's when you're going to see a lot more Shimmer. That's where you may see Toasty play alongside Sajed, because maybe they don't. All the time those players, like with having to deal with NACL too, like they can't get all those games in. But the NACL, like I guess I'll say the Dragonsteel roster, right? Not the Marivel roster, the Dragonsteel roster. I think it's just going to be Zamudo, Yuji, Spyrax, Sajed, and Zyko.
Probably, yeah. I mean, it is also. I know Gordo has his own little conspiracy theory that they might not be done with all their roster swaps yet, but I would imagine that is probably going to be the.
Well, I just wonder, like, I believe that we definitely. Am I crazy? I thought for sure we knew it was Zyko's last CLAW last year, right? I could have sworn that was a big subject of conversation. Maybe I'm absolutely bonkers. Unless he goes to grad school.
I guess a grad school angle could really change it.
He's been with Marivel for 3.5 years. So yeah. I mean, really, you don't have to stay in college for 4 years. You could go for like.
Yeah, I thought that there was discussion last CLAW that Zyko was on his way out. If he isn't, then obviously keep Zyko. The question of if he's not going to grad school and he does graduate after this semester, then would they run Dragonsteel with a player who doesn't currently attend Marivel University? And would they already kind of did once when they subbed in Rock Boom for a week, and then B, would they who would they get if they're not going to do that?
I'd hope they just enroll one of these, because there's so many young
there's so many young support. Like obviously, I think we talked about this with Sneezes a little bit off cam, but like there is a very shallow pool when it comes to supports. Like I feel like everyone has kind of come to this consensus that support is get a little bit of a drought. So there are like 2 names that I have in mind, which would be like Mixture and Cryogen, obviously. Exactly. But I think beyond that, it's a little bit tough. Like if you put like a gun to my head and told me to name like a third one that could possibly play at the same level as those 2, I don't know. Tell my family I love them, because it's probably over for me.
I can think of one if the CLOL team is on Booms. I think Miracle could be one, but outside of that, I can't think of anybody else.
Yeah, well, maybe. Yeah, maybe.
I'm just trying to think like young guys that would have the eligibility to like hop from, like Miracle's a young. I think Miracle still has at least another year of CLOL.
He's got more than that. He's
more than that.
He was a freshman like last year.
Dude,
yeah, so let's say St. Clair goes boom, or Miracle just I don't want to say you're a snake, Miracle, but like I also realize that if Marivel comes a knocking, like,
dude, I'm gonna be completely honest with you. I actually think that St. Clair College have the sauce going into next year. Like this team,
I do also
looks really good.
Well,
like
we'll get a chance to talk about St. Clair in this bracket. So let's get into ACL bracket then. Unless anybody has any other NACL points to make.
Nope.
Yeah, I mean the Dragonsteel roster is definitely going to be very interesting. We'll see who they end up starting with for 2025. But let's get into ACL here. I think Clerky tweeted out that like their starting would be basically what Slayer said, the same, but with excuse me,
Sajed.
with Sajed instead of Scary Jerry. Oh my God.
Oh, he's kidding.
All right.
It's the play-by-play attack.
I know it's
On
the
the
3 best of 5s in a week attack is what it is. But
Yep, that's the
yep,
season.
that's all right. I'm good.
'Tis the season.
So let's get into the ACL then and talk about what's going on in our sponsor league. So we've had ourselves quite a few matches played since we last checked in with the episode with Luxio a couple weeks ago. We've had lower round 2, lower round 3, and lower quarters. In addition to that, we have had the upper semifinals. So let's start with lower round 2. I'm going to go through these. We'll go through these matches one at a time. Let's just try to keep it not too long so that we don't end up here all night. And let's start with St. Clair versus the Pulsing Gooners, where St. Clair Saints take a 2-1 win there and eliminate the Pulsing Gooners in 9th through 12th.
Yep.
Yeah, I mean, I feel pretty good. I mean, what week was it when I came on here and I was like, out of the Zon group, I was like, hey, guys. Like, I know, like, Ole Miss Pulsing Gooners obviously are great. But I was like, look out for St. Clair.
Yeah,
Look out.
I'm kind of with you on this, Slayer. I wasn't like
I
a
like
huge,
St. Clair, man.
I wasn't a huge St. Clair fan going into the ACL, but I think I kind of understand now. I will also say, you know, I really like St. Clair, but part of me also kind of wants to say that this was a Pulsing Gooners underperformance. And
Yes.
I also feel like the Pulsing Gooners in general, like there was a tweet, I forget from who said like, oh yeah, the Pulsing Gooners and Pulstar team haven't really scrimmed.
Oh, it's Thin Uncle Phil.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Yes,
Thin Uncle Phil's
Thin
like, we
Uncle
have
Phil.
not scrimped.
Yeah, so like, I mean, you probably have like St. Clair Saints who are, you know, obviously running around in SEAL, you know, probably practicing with each other way more often than Pulsing Gooners. So I almost feel like a result like that is to be expected, but like in a way, because I mean, they're only getting stronger, and I feel like Pulsing Gooners' synergy is only getting worse. So to me, I think it kind of, it definitely to me shows a kind of mentality gap between some of these teams. Like some of them are like, oh, it's off season, don't give a fuck. ACL is just kind of like a wind down tournament for their very, very you know, high efforts throughout the entire year. And then there's some other teams who like ultra mega uber giga try hard, and I feel like there are definitely, you know, those ones are noticeable because I think all of the ones that do that are still in this tournament. So
And
like
some that don't.
Yeah.
But yeah, for sure. I see what you're saying though, for sure. I think there's definitely like some of the NACL teams come in and they're pretty light on the practice for sure. Yeah, it doesn't surprise me that Pulsing Gooners fall into that category. I still think this is like this is an embarrassing elimination though for them. This is a
I wouldn't go that far. I don't
I don't
mean,
know.
like roster for roster, man.
Yeah,
and coach,
you got 4
like, I think
NACL
this is so
players, and
embarrassing.
even the one that isn't an ACL player is an ACL fall champ in Wokao. Yeah, I don't know. I think it's.
I don't think it's embarrassing. Like I still think that if this team practiced more, they would. Dare I say they might actually still be in it from here on out. But
Yeah,
like,
I don't
I
think
agree,
it should
but
be
that's part of
held
the
against them. But I
Yeah.
do think it is. You should come in like the baseline, and maybe you just have to bump up SCC in your power rankings a little bit. But I think when you're an NACL team and you're coming in against like Maddie, Miracle, Sama, like these kind of names, even Flocon, like these kind of names.
hey
I
man,
think
don't disrespect the Flocon.
I don't mean to disrespect Flocon here, but I
I
just
get
it's like the
No, I don't.
given like all these guys have competed in OQs before, and some of them never even make top 16. I think the baseline assumption should be that you're able to show up even on a team that hasn't scrimmed together too much and be able to outperform. And that this team was doing that against similar caliber opponents for most of the season, right? Pulsing Gooners do end 6-2. They are able to take down other teams that are kind of in this similar category, but St. Clair are the team that show up on the day and they come up with a win.
Yeah, I'm optimistic about St. Clair going into 2025. I actually think that this roster, like to me, there are certain tiers or categories of like SeaWorld teams where it's like really, really high, which is like Winthrop and Maryville. And then I would honestly put Ole Miss in there as well at this current point in the at this current point, definitely.
St. Thomas too.
Yeah. And I feel like St. Clair have been fighting tooth and nail to get toward that tier and have really been like punching the ceiling as hard as they can, but they're unable to break it. I think this roster might actually be able to just straight up shatter it. Like, depending on how they do in 2025 and how well they mesh, this is a good indication of things to come for this squad. So I'm really excited for them. Speaking of rosters that I'm excited for going into next year, I know they lost, but Mirage Alliance versus AOE, 2-0 for AOE. But we got to cover this one, Slayer. So I'll let you kind of. What were your thoughts kind of after this one?
XU is LTA jungler. That was my thought.
Yeah.
This was dusted off pretty easily, and the jungle gap was apparent. I think Low Jazz, love you, buddy. Jeez, I'm getting out too.
It's
Low
rough,
Jazz,
dude. There's too many series to cast.
Yeah, Low Jazz, I love you, buddy, but he was like 0-8-2 on Nunu in game 2, like just running it.
Yeah, it was pretty. I feel like it was worse than that. If I remember, it was like bad.
It got pretty bad. This was like AOE putting it on cruise control with XU in, and he looked really good, and AOE didn't have to do much else, unfortunately. And I hate to say it, like I'm just being honest, because like I also love a lot of the pieces of this Mirage team. So
yeah. I'm really excited for Mirage. I hope that Norm and Co kind of come back, because I think Mirage Alliance is actually, like, this roster in particular was pretty exciting. I think the biggest issue that they kind of faced throughout the season was how this, and don't take this the wrong way, but they were a little bit one-dimensional. Right, like I feel like this roster was very live or die by Utter, and Utter is a great carry. But it felt like when you're going against a player like Ariendel, who is like one of the best players, at least in my memory, just period, in tier 3, of being able to just neutralize and null state your lane, it doesn't work, right? Because you're not going to be able to get ahead for a player who's playing. Yeah, he was playing, like, he plays things like Anivia, like Aurelia and Soul, like these champions like pilot themselves when it comes to wave clear, and you're never going to be able to make an aggressive play on them because they control the waves so with basically just an iron grip. So I feel like this was almost a perfect counter to Mirage Alliance and kind of what they want to do. But I think once you get down there, like, a lot of other rosters are going to take this one dimensionality into consideration and totally going to notice it. So I hope Mirage keep most of their pieces going into next year, and hopefully we see them in tier 3 again.
Yep, Norm's got that LFT out there, so we'll see what he's going to be up to. But definitely I've enjoyed this, like, AMI squad, whatever form they end up taking next year. Hoping to see some of these pieces back together, or at least see them all somewhere around the OQ scene, because I've been very impressed with what this team has been able to do as a crew.
If I quickly, really piggyback off that, really cool to see that 4 guys played the entirety of 2024 together. That was pretty cool.
Yeah.
Decoy, Low Jazz, Baz, and Pocus.
Yeah.
And do really well as well. They had some deep OQ runs in there and stuff. Yeah. So absolutely going to be looking at what they're going to be able to put together for next year. Up next, Polestar versus Straw Hat Crew, a matchup where
what happened?
We garnered a little bit of flame here.
Like, this is one of the things. So you said that, like, embarrassing loss for Pulsing Gooners, and I disagreed. If you say the same thing for this, I will agree with you.
Dude, you're gonna get Linzu off after us again here, man.
Yeah.
No, shout out to Coach.
Shout out Linzu.
Yeah, shout out Coach Linzu of Straw Hat Crew, who called out that not only did we disrespect his team here, but apparently we I don't even track coaches this closely, but I have disrespected his team every split of ACL for like 3 splits in a row. Like, I disrespected Cerulean's Kittens, and I disrespected Keep Pathing Bot, which was the last.
Man, you just hate Xiao Danny, man.
Xiao Danny was not on all those teams, was he? Keep Pathing
He was
Bot
on 2 of the 3.
Yeah, okay.
Yeah, 2 of the 3.
I don't even remember shit talking Keep Pathing Bot that much, but I guess I did. I believe him when he says I did. He would remember better than me. So, yeah, I mean, shout out to Straw Hat Crew for pulling it all together there. We did also get some corrections in the comments that they had tried some different iterations of the roster as well. And then the claim from Linzu is that, they had extra stuff that they were keeping secret that they hadn't had to show yet. That I'm a little bit more skeptical on because they were in a 3-way tie at 5-3. One of the teams not making playoffs, so I think you really needed to show it all. But they did. They came in well prepared for this Polestar matchup, and they end up eliminating the other Pulse team. Both Pulse teams end up dropping at 9 through 12.
I have a direct quote from Polestar mid laner because I got to meet him. Sam came while he was out. Sio.gg. Direct quote. I don't know what happened. There you go, guys.
There you go. All right.
That was his analysis on the Polestar loss.
No. I mean, I listen. I love all the guys on Polestar, right? Like top down, I think these guys are super cool. I've met some of them in real life. So I mean, I'm sure they'll bounce back from this. Like this probably isn't like too much of a strain on them mentally. So it is cool to see though from Straw Hat Crew. Like honestly, I'll take the L here. I don't take a lot of them here on the Salt Mine, Pat. But yeah, I was a Straw Hat Crew doubter, and yeah, you got me. So
Other
they
than the
definitely
larger
made it.
scale L's that the North American scene as a whole takes each and every day.
Yep. My bad.
You're bad. It's Quax's fault, everybody. That's what we can trace it all back to Quax. It's been all downhill since this guy got involved.
Hell no.
What do you mean? What about that? What about that one time I shouted? What was it? The Super Top. Who was it?
Brandini. What about that time FlyQuest won 2 matches against Genji?
That's true. That's true.
Yep.
Stuff's happened.
Yep.
But no, I mean, a great performance from that squad, though. And yeah, I mean, Polestar dropping out very, very early. I mean, this would have been the team between the two Pulse rosters, I think, that I would have expected, I think, a lot more out of in this ACL. I don't know if they practiced much either, but, Hoarder and Cryogen and even Chad are kind of really auditioning for NACL here. It's one.
A lot of them were in the Sido combine, though.
Hoarder, they were all in the Sido.
Yeah. Their focus might have been split. I know I'm just assuming here, but or like speculating here, but that could be an explanation, right? Like they've had a lot on their plate recently. Like the Sido combine has been going on for a while now, and like ACL is pretty rigorous, right? Especially with playoffs, like you're potentially playing every Monday and every Friday. Like it depends. So it for sure. I mean, it's stressful on us casters. I mean, listen to you two. Gotcha.
Yeah, you got us. I mean, it definitely is. Man, I'm so sleepy tonight, dude. You've demolished my train of thought. Yeah, man, props to Straw Hat Crew. I don't know what else to say.
Yeah. I mean, we could just keep the upset train rolling. I mean, this was what round 2 was. We were just dropping bombs.
This was our match. This one fucking hurts me.
Yeah, this one. I mean, Gordo, you could probably you could break this one down, right?
2-0 over ISU.
I was worried about this, man.
What happened? I actually didn't watch it.
Well, so Faticon was not playing. You do got to give that a little bit of credit over there. So Faticon does exit the ACL undefeated. Both of his team's losses did not have him present. So, if you want to keep having that best AD carry and C-Law argument, ACL is not going to be the place to settle it as the team drops out before he's able to return. Yeah, I don't know, and just peak performers. I mean, they keep their ACL lower bracket magic going here. I think they just show up as the better team on the day. I think they're really able to just execute out their game plans pretty effectively. This is like 2 weeks ago now, so it's not the freshest series in my memory. But yeah, I definitely think it didn't feel like it was all on substitute support for ISU. I'm blanking on who subbed in. It was
You mean AD, sub AD?
Yeah,
Mikhail?
it was
It was Mikhail, I think.
NACL, yeah, thank you.
NACL, sorry, that came over from the old,
Yeah, so I think it definitely doesn't all fall on NACL here, but I think Robbie Bob does Robbie Bob things. He is still one of the top mid laners in the ACL space, and I think he just has a couple of really huge games. He and Sage Wabe both do really, really well in this series against their respective opponents, and especially in the team fights. They're basically just untouchable. Yeah, and I think Music has strong early games, but once it gets into team fighting territory, it was always peak performers who were able to just establish stronger fight lines. They play their front to back style. Alorum's always on these tanks. Alorum gets a sick Malfight game in there as well. And while they weren't all out stomps, I think you just come away feeling like you could have played a third game, a fourth game. Peak performers probably would have won every single one. They just
Yeah.
at least on the day, they were just they were a lot cleaner in their execution from like 14 minutes on.
Yeah.
Yep.
I will also say I'm a little bit worried about ISU going into next year. I was like super fucking confident about this team in 2025, but I think the director, I forget who the director of Redbird Esports is, or like the main guy that runs it all. But he posted something along the lines of like, "Of fucking course this happens," and like didn't elaborate any further. And people under it were like, "Uh-oh, shit, what happened?" And I'm like,
Was it TJ?
No,
No,
TJ's
no,
coach.
it wasn't
I think
Command
he means like the
Attack.
He's
big.
the coach, right? Yeah, you're talking to the director.
'Cause
Okay.
Yeah, I
ISU
think-
does
I'm talking
have
about,
a
like, the-
decent esports budget. Their Overwatch team's really good. Their Rocket League's really good. Like they.
Yep.
Yeah. So maybe it has nothing to do with the LOL team at all. But like, I mean, LOL coaches and personnel were responding under it, and I was like, please don't tell me this roster like something happened, because like my biggest worry is like Fatikon. Like we haven't seen this guy has been kind of splitting time with Makel or Makel, and then like is also an import. So we've had a decent amount of import worrying trends recently. So I'm really hoping that doesn't hit ISU, because I think Fatikon is really got the potential to bitch slap a lot of other 80 carries in CLOL going forward.
Okay, yeah, that's the first I'm hearing about that tweet, but unless it is something going boom like Quax is referencing there, I still think getting knocked out like this is probably good for ISU. It's good to take your losses here if you have aims towards a deep sea lull run or something like that. It's good to play up against teams who are able to exploit some of your weaknesses. I think the discussions we had with Aloxio about them being a little bit one-dimensional and struggling to adapt when things get chaotic definitely rang true in that series against peak performers. Once Alorum starts just running at you on Malfight, winning out on the one-on-one, it really felt like things started to fall apart, and he's just able to just keep hard slamming R onto Makel and Meslo over and over again, and there was just nothing they could do.
Yeah.
Damn. Well,
all right.
I mean, it was on par for that round of the lower brackets. So outside of one series,
definitely was. All right, let's keep it rolling. It's late at night. We want to get through all of these upper semis. Ole Miss versus Guangdong Flying Tigers. A 2-0 for Ole Miss, and not a particularly close one. Guangdong Flying Tigers were not. This was a featured stream. I think I can summarize this one in 2 seconds. Guangdong Flying Tigers were not prepared for lane swaps, for sure. And Ole Miss team fighting was really, really good.
Yeah,
like Shogo, I think especially. Shogo has a highlight reel in this one.
Mm-hmm.
Yep.
Also, I was on Chibi's co-stream after I was on draft for game number 1, because TDS is having whatever. And I remember the game 2 Zillion top lane who started E onto Sunlight. Both me and Shitty just started freaking out, because we were like, what the fuck is this? Like, because Sunlight doesn't like taking teleport, right? So he obviously is going for this like aggressive play. I think he was playing like the Darius. And then they've got like, it's like at first it looks like it's a one-on-one in the top lane, and then 2 people just appear from the pixel bush in top lane as soon as Sunlight decides to go in. He gets fucking 90% slowed by the Zillion and just dies. Like, and he doesn't have teleport, so now they just like basically lock him out of top lane. Ole Miss esports, man. I mean, usually I feel like when we see these guys play traditionally, they're really, really good, but don't ever say that they can't play, some off meta shit like Zillion support, because that was absolutely crazy. Like this was a slaughter if ever I've seen one. And GFT are a top 4 team, right? We'll get into that later, but like if this is how they are able to treat another team that is still in the tournament, then like there's a very strong case that they could win it all.
Yeah, I mean, they are what they've dropped one game, one
so.
singular game, I believe, across. I think there was one in the regular season, or are they fully
Yeah,
undefeated?
I think in the regular season they dropped one, and it was
Yeah, I think it.
well they dropped more.
Yeah.
They dropped 3 in the regular season.
They dropped 3.
Okay.
They're 16.
All right, so
and
no
3.
so no serious loss. I mean, it's been an Ole Miss glaze session for a while around around ACL and CELO, but I'll continue it for good reason. Credit to Collimer. I think he's just the way he's overhauled this team's identity is super impressive, and I like that he's getting creative in ACL, using it as the benchmark with that zillion support. But this new idea that Ole Miss runs of like, they were a team that was very. I mean, there was a reason that the meme of like, oh boy, Ole Miss is playing. Then it's like the big chunk is like, I want to fucking die, and it was like, oh great, Ole Miss won. Is because like they were just like the streakiest, like craziest team ever. Like their games were nuts from like the jump, like especially with like early game because they were pretty one dimensional, or they're always really playing for Shogo. Like the games got crazy. This is a totally different team. Like they are so resolved in like they don't even worry about the kill score anymore. Like it's something that Commerce really preach. Like they just get those gold leads through like lane swaps, through correct macro, playing for turret plates, playing for the right objectives, and they just accrue these massive gold leads in low kill count games. Like if you had told me this is how Ole Miss plays like 6 months ago, I would have called you fucking crazy. This is nothing like the Ole Miss we saw in CELO, and it's just impressive to see it already manifesting before we take over to 2025. Like Ole Miss is scary. Ole Miss for CELO, man. I mean, they're beating the Ole Miss memes already, and if this holds up in CELO, look out. And in the rest of ACL.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah, I'm hearing some discussion too about
and the
trying to
Keel
make
edition, which just happened, by the way.
the Keel edition too, which they're being very non-specific about whether it's his player or coach. 3
sounds like it's starting
as
as coach. Yeah, well, I think I saw a tweet from Collimer that Icelandic's in his last year. So
yeah.
Yeah.
So he said that. So I imagine maybe he's a coach for now, and then as soon as Icelandic graduates, it's Landshark Keel coming up yet again. He was on the.
I know filthy.
Keel did retire and say he was going to pursue coaching, but that's always a tentative thing with this scene, especially at this level. So we'll see. We'll find out. All right. Well, huge run from Ole Miss, though. Excited to see more from them, and I have heard some things about them trying to make NACL as well, if they can. So that would be a very interesting thing to witness as well if they are able to get in there. Because based on their performance here, it definitely feels like Asila's probably got to shore some things up a little bit. I would worry about Stray at the NACL level a little bit as well, but and Icelandic.
And obviously not Shogo.
No, I'm not worried about Shogo Rhino. I actually think they would be quite a good NACL bot lane. The rest, they would need to adapt, but I think their team play is very, very good, and I would be very interested in seeing them at this level, especially when we've got more spots to qualify. Yeah, let's get to the CCG Civil War, which we wanted to watch and couldn't because of a mystery reschedule.
Dude, I don't even get me the fucking started on that shit, bro. Like, okay. I'm gonna get started on that shit.
All right. You got
it. So
don't get me started. Wait. All right, get me started.
Yup. I'm gonna get fucking started. So I remember I was going to run the stream for this one because Slayer, I believe you were out.
PC was dead. Yeah.
Yep, your PC was dead. It's alive again. So everybody, it's okay. They did CPR, shit like that. It's back.
Yep.
Yep. So I invited on a few other people. I got like a producer and everything, and we had heard nothing, right? Like there was nothing in the team channels. I believe one of the CCG rosters hadn't even typed in their team channel. So there's that. And I go over to Gordo and Caddy who are in call, and I'm like, yo guys, do you know where the CCG people are? Because we haven't seen anything about a reschedule. And then I DM Shaloyden, and Shaloyden's like, oh, we rescheduled to an hour later. And then I'm like, okay, well, I guess I could go for an hour later, but then I check in with my crew and they're not able to do it. So, well, one of them isn't able to do it, and I didn't want to waste the other one's time. So then we kind of call it quits. But I mean, I kind of expected this result, to be completely honest with you. Like CCG Glorp versus Ole Miss is this is going to be the grand finals, like super far ahead of time. Like I think these are the two teams that will meet on the 20th and battle it out in a best of 5.
Yeah,
So I'm not surprised.
Yeah. Having not gotten to see it, but have gotten a recap from Aojun. Apparently, they did have some games in there where they were ahead. They did have leads, but CCG Glorp ended up pulling it back in, and I think that's really where that experience together for Zyko, Scary Jerry, and Zamudo does end up making a difference. I am curious for both Glorp here and, well, I guess it doesn't matter for AoE anymore because they're not going to get any more games to potentially run XU. But for Glorp, I'm curious, if these Scary Jerry rumors ring true, once he's Riot official on the GCD, I do not believe they will allow him to play here anymore unless they have changed those rules. So this is something we ran into last fall ACL as well, where Isles got signed as well as Meech. And both of those players had to drop off of their respective teams somewhat into the ACL playoffs. So it's a good problem to have, but it is one that may come up. So I would be curious to see what happens. Do you bring Ninim back in? Do you try to get an E-sub situation going?
Because Ninim is the only
I feel like you would have to
wait.
Okay, honestly, did they have to do E-subs for that last year? Because that sounds really, really unfair. Like, if
we may make an exception if it's
okay,
LCS
good. Thank you.
promotion.
Because like, if Scary Jerry has to go to the LTA, like, this team should not be punished for that by having to E-sub someone and lose bans, especially this far in. Like, that would be so shitty. I pray to God that doesn't happen though. Like, obviously, I want Scary Jerry in the LTA, but like, I feel like this would rob us of again what I would believe to be a grand finals and a damn competitive one at that. Like, I think this upper finals is easily going to go to 5 games, and I do not think it's going to change when one of these teams probably run the lower bracket and get there.
For sure. I gotta step away for 1 second, but you guys start on AoE St. Clair on your own pace. I'll be right back.
Yeah, sure. I also do want to say that the only 80 carry player listed still, they have full sub slots on CCG Glorp right now.
Yeah, they do.
It's only Ninim. Like, the other players are Dragoon, Cerulean, Rosethorn, and then that's Y now. Okay, so well, those guys are playing AD anytime soon. But yeah, so move on to the lower bracket. Quax, so Guangdong Flying Tigers. The meme lives on.
I don't
Quest team has their deep run. 3-1 over AoE, and you got to watch all of it. So
I mean you've got to actually watch this series to believe some of the shit that like happened. Like you've got to see it to believe it genuinely. I do think that this was definitely like GFT. So I will say this. I think GFT had one of the cleanest games I've seen from them in game number 1. Like, Sunlight, there is a reason why I think that everyone has sung the praises of this guy, and it's because of performances like this in game number 1. That being said, though, game number 2 and then game number 4, which they inevitably won to, take the series, were super, super sloppy from them, right? Like, game number 2, they put Sir Zipri, who's their 80 carry usually, on Tryndamere mid, and then put him against Ariendel, of all people, right? Like, this is like, that is one of the best players in tier 3, or one of the best mid laners, at least, in tier 3. So that was a ballsy move in and of itself, and somehow it worked, but with like an asterisk, because he was getting shit on in trades every time by the Galio, because it's Galio. But then he would just go to a side lane. He had like 10 CS a minute. He was running like full Bowson's Law and managed to help them win the game. So this was definitely like Guangdong Flying Tigers, like darkest technology I think that we've seen yet. And it did win them the series. I do also want to say, I think AoE were decently handicapped. Like, they had Onat in the 80 carry role, who actually popped off in game number 4. But I honestly feel like they get breezy, and I think there is potential for this series to, or not breezy, mobility. I think there is potential for this series to completely turn around and for AoE to actually take it. But who knows, right? So I would say insane by GFT. I did not think they were going to actually win this, and I have been really, really high on them all season. But they managed to do it. Now they've got to do the same thing against CCG Esports, because CCG Esports absolutely dumpster fire, threw a dumpster fire onto Peak Performers in a 3-0.
Yeah. But Gordo, any just fleeting thoughts on the catastrophe of a series, GFT, AoE, before we move on? I mean, you can chop it up.
Oh, wow,
on
we're already on
play-by-play.
GFT AoE. Let's go, boys. All right. Good progress made. Sorry about that. Don't mean to grunt myself there. Yeah, I mean, GFT AoE, I assume Quax did quite the job of summarizing it for you there, but yeah, I mean, just a pretty big collapse from AoE. I think, the constant jungle swaps couldn't have helped them too much there, and having to sub in ONAT for bot lane as well.
Yeah.
Probably a bit of a cost, but I mean, ONAT played well. I don't really...
In game number 4, I said he played really, really well. Yeah.
Yeah, and that was the game number 3 as well. I think his Ezreal was very solid. I think it filled its role. Yeah, but I mean, GFT definitely have a little bit of magic going for them, though. I think they're very well defined in their ability to kind of play for these late game team fights. I think it was distinctly bad against Ole Miss because Shogo, but and Asila. I think Asila can play those late game team fights well. I think their whole team is pretty well set up for those sorts of scenarios. But when you're up against a team like AoE, especially when they've got multiple players on the roster who haven't been there all season, I think that's really a place where GFT could thrive. And you can see, I mean, one thing they definitely have going for them as well is that they do not seem to tilt. They will let games get into very, very bad situations, which is obviously, not a plus, but they are always looking to get back into it. They are always looking to still pick you. They are always looking to just find a tiny little crack that they could get back in the game and drive a huge wedge into it to try to create space to be able to win the game. And I mean, we saw them pick up 2 game wins in this series in that exact fashion.
Yeah. Okay, I actually did just realize that we completely skipped over AoE St. Clair, Straw Hat Crew, and Peak Performers.
Oh, okay, that is what I told you to go to.
Yeah,
I got
confused.
Damn, you guys really slammed through
Oh
those while I was
shit!
gone.
Okay, my bad then.
That was yeah. It was. I'll take credit for that one actually, but well,
let's talk about AoE St. Clair first. This is the series I did not see.
I don't think anyone got to see this one.
I'm not super surprised about this one, honestly. Like, obviously, I think St. Clair are a really good team, but I mean, this is AoE. Like, these are. I feel like these players are just a caliber above what we expect to see from St. Clair. They're a caliber above what we expect to see from most CLOL squads. Period. So I'm not super surprised by this result. Like, I think St. Clair should be really proud that they made it this far, because a lot of people going into the season weren't really sure how this was going to pan out, most notably in those solo lanes. Like, some people were like, oh shit, is Sama going to be able to, fill the shoes of Ricky? Is Flocon going to be able to do what he did when he was a sub on CCG? Like, and both of those were yes, right? Like, I feel like Sama really filled the shoes of Ricky quite nicely. And then Flocon is just an absolute beast. Like, I'm so excited for this guy going into next year. I actually think he can do some major damage because he's both unique in his picks and he's really mechanically gifted. He's kind of like he gives off like a mid lane version of Sunlight energy. Obviously not to that extent though, at least in the champion pool department.
Yeah, I look at both of these series very similarly. You could pull from the sort of ideal of the upset team, right? It's a classic for, like, in these scenarios for a team to get a big upset and then fall flat in the next series. So that happened to St. Clair, happened to Straw Hat Crew. Also think that the logic holds up that Quack said that I would say AoE's kind of ahead of St. Clair. I'd say Peak Performance roster is a cut ahead of what Straw Hat Crew has. Maybe outside of bottom lane. maybe. But yeah. So also the last point, really similar. If you're Straw Hat Crew as well, I think you're very happy you made it this far, especially given the scenario you were in, right? Like you get the CCGs, the Polestar upset. You were one misplay of a game away from not even being here. So
Yeah.
to make it this far into top 8, big on them. But peak performance, this is what we were worried about, like with a veteran team like this that's played in so many bigger games. Like at some point it was just going to click, and it clicked through a lot of this lower bracket, and was why they're able to just topple a lot of teams.
Yeah. Nope, hard agree. I'm not a lot to say about those series overall. I feel like those ones were kind of like, yeah, they were kind of just like silent assassinations. But yeah, I mean, credit to those two teams in particular. Like Straw Hat Crew, again, take the fucking L. St. Clair, proud of you guys. Now I might actually, you know what? I'll declare myself a fan going into next year. I think I'll stand with the Redbirds, and I will stand with St. Clair. So I'm a fan of aviation, if you will. Yeah. Why do you think I like Guangdong Flying Tigers? They fly.
They do. They do. It is in the name for sure.
You should hate Ole Miss then, because they're not even on land; they're in the water.
Fuck the land sharks.
No,
just kidding, Colin. I love you, bro.
A little bit more land sharks in the discourse lately with Marvel Rivals out and stuff. So
true. Even I've seen clips of that cute little bastard.
It's my opinion that those are the worst players in the game. By the way, like if you main Jeff, you suck at the game.
I don't know.
Open a whole can of worms.
I don't know how Jeff became like super. Jeff has become so relevant in the last like calendar 24 months or so. Because I don't know if anybody plays Marvel Snap, he was a big meta defining card over there too. Just really flexible, fit in every deck was a big problem there too. So something about this Jeff character, man, you gotta keep him out of your video games. I don't know when the Marvel MOBA. Did Marvel ever do a MOBA? I know DC did.
No, they
when Marvel
did.
eventually
Dude, anyone who tries
MOBA.
Anyone who tries to do a MOBA just fails miserably. It's honestly kind of hilarious. Like Heroes of the Storm tried so hard. Like Blizzard really tried, but
yeah, there was a DC one like 10 years ago. It was also very bad.
Yeah. The one I remember was like I remember Cartoon Network did like a battle party or whatever it was called. They did yeah, and I was in like 4th fucking grade, and I don't know, maybe I was in I think that might have been the time when I was in like my big Minecraft phase and not really playing League. It was around the time like Tom Kench came out. I was like, dude, this fucking battle party shit is so fucking cool. And that was the game that I played for a while. So yeah, then it dropped off a cliff like every other MOBA except for League of Legends and I guess Dota as well, right?
That was a nice story, but all I heard was him say when I was 14, Tom Kench came out and just
he said when he was in 4th grade, didn't you?
4th grade. Oh, even worse.
Well, it might have been like 6th grade or something like that. Somewhere within those couple of years.
Ugh.
Yeah.
Get an aging filter on here.
Yeah.
All right, let's talk about the other lower quarters matchup. CCG Esports 3-0 over Peak Performers. Peak Performers have finally run into the wall. They finally get into a match that they can't come out on top of. And I think this was, I mean, one of the big standouts to me on this one was Crimson. I think Crimson and Kryra both were very strong on the top side throughout this series. Like, I think Crimson had that Ambessa game that went very well as well. Yeah, like I thought that was a very impressive run from him over the course of that 3-0 over Peak Performers, and yeah, I mean the whole squad really does show up. Aojun on a couple of Aojun classics too, but I think those are the pieces that stick out especially to me over the course of the series. Is that Ambessa game into Alorum's Pantheon really was a big build out for. A big win for Crimson there, especially when the next day Quax and I get to see Sunlight run that matchup.
Yeah.
So I mean, definitely showing a little bit of a different side of it than we saw the next day.
Yeah, I think this. I think the 2 series from CCG is really interesting. It's like it mirrors their NACL time perfectly, right? Like, because this is CCG Sports with Aojun, right? So it's not much of a different roster. CCG play Dragonsteel, CCG Glorp. Get slapped. That happened in ACL. But then then they go play Peak Performers, which is like, pieces of Lotus. It's basically a promotion tournament team, right? They slap them around. So like this is just like we've been knowing this is CCG's floor and ceiling is what I'm trying to say. And I can elaborate a little bit more on that when we talk about previewing matchups after we finally wrapped up all the games we missed.
Yeah, I mean, I don't have a lot of thoughts on this one, honestly. Like, I predicted that CCG Esports would probably be able to take this one. I am really excited to see the series, though, against GFT. If GFT win this, they are the Kingslayers of ACL, and no one's ever going to take it away from them because they eliminated not one, not two, but 3 number 1 seeds from this competition back to back to back, pretty much. Like, the only... Like they obviously lost to Ole Miss, but like before that they had beat ISU, and then right after that, right? Like this is a team that like straight up just slaughters all the best teams, which is just insane. Like it's so cool to see that this team just shit on all the number 1 seeds. It's crazy.
Yeah. So I mean, I think CCG gets this done. As much as I'd love to believe in the GFT magic, I'll be the doubter. At me on Twitter if you want it after. I will accept the clowning. But I think that CCG stack up. I love Sunlight, man, but if Sunlight beats up on Crimson here, like we gotta get this guy on a super OQ team. Like I gotta.
Yeah. I mean, Cozy is one thing. Crimson is another.
Yeah, Crimson. Yeah. Crimson's a step above. And then like you guys talked about how big topside was for GFT. Like I just think Crimson Cryra should not get ran in this matchup. Like they should be ahead. And then Array Trevor on the bot side, whoever we're wanting with GFT in the bot lane, like
it's gonna be Zebri.
Yeah, Zebri. Like I 3-1 CCG. I think we've established many times that CCG, while they can't like beat up on some of the NACL rosters we've seen in here, they're not going to lose to a promotion tournament quality team. As much as the Cinderella story is fun, I think it's going to be 3-1 CCG.
Well, so I would be inclined to agree with you, but I feel like we've kind of been in this song and dance before, right? Anytime we've talked about GFT, we've talked about them as like individual pieces. Where this team really comes into its own and what makes them so special is that when they are 5 players, they are unstoppable. Like they actually play the late game macro. It's a lot of dirty tricks, but they play it really, really well. And I do feel like, the laning phase is probably going to be pretty rough for these guys. But if they can just find one little angle, right? We saw this with AoE. They literally just need one good shot and they can immediately rip off the armor of the other team and just absolutely go to town. So I'm actually gonna be I'm gonna continue to ride that flying tiger here. I'm gonna say GFT are gonna win this one. I'm gonna say they're actually gonna win it 3-1, and not 3-2. I'm gonna say they are gonna 4-game just like they did to AoE.
I mean, I'm all for being wrong here because the story of them knocking out 3-1 seeds is just
that would be. I would tell that to my grandkids, honestly.
Yeah, I think like the focus for me is not even really on Crimson, although like I think Sunlight is a big feature player, of course, on the GFT roster. But what CCG did so well against peak performers is they were able to focus down Robbie Bob at the mid lane. And I think that they, do that consciously, knowing that Robbie Bob was like the main force that peak performers play through. So I can very much see CCG. They take their wins with Crimson here, and maybe I was oversimplified when I broke down their match against peak performers, but I do really think that the focus towards mid is what ends up really shutting them out and stopping them from even taking a single win. Robbie Bob had some sick games in there on the rise and stuff, but it just does not end up being enough. I could see CCG doing something similar here, right? Like, Cryra is a flexible player. He's, I think, the best player on this team, and he can really go in and attack multiple different avenues. So I think if he, does pair with Crimson and comes in to make plays towards top lane, they can effectively shut down Sunlight. But like he can show up anywhere too, though, right? Like Array is such a good pressure sponge. Trevor can always move around the map and make plays happen. And, you know, they can do things like attack mid as well, or just focus primarily on shutting out Evan Lai from the jungle. Like I think regardless of CCG has multiple avenues to attack here is what I really want to
Yep.
Yeah.
kind of emphasize, and I think that Kryra is going to be the question that I would struggle to see GFT answer.
Yeah, I mean, Kryra is just this man is a step above, I think. Like, I really want to see Kryra get put on like a kick-ass roster in the NACL one day and really see where this kid's ceiling is at. Because I think like the way he's been developed is really encouraging to like other players for the future, because like he basically ran the gauntlet and has just been improving every single year. So I would struggle to see a world where he gets put down at all this series, even if they lose. But like I do think that he will definitely be their strongest point. Like if you're looking across the other guy and you're comparing strengths, I think the gap between Evan Lai and Kryra is the biggest. And not because like Evan Lai is bad. Kryra is just that guy. Like he's been that guy for the latter half of 2024.
Yeah. And quickly, TDS 3-2 on CCG. He wanted us to say that in this matchup. And then Gordo, do you have a score prediction for this matchup before we move to the last one?
I guess I will go. I want to say 3-1 CCG.
All right. So that leaves.
Did you guys
the
get
upper
TDSs
finals
in there? TDS dropped us a prediction earlier.
3-2. Yeah, 3-2. CCG for TDS. Last matchup before we can finally retire, as we are all tired. Ole Miss versus Dragon Glorp. CCG Glorp. This one is.
I knew this was coming. I knew this was coming right from the beginning.
Does Scary Jerry get to play?
Yeah, that's the question.
Yes.
All right, I'll break the prediction because I think it's actually so important. Like it's actually really big. If we get the CCG Glorp we've seen the entire time, I think they win. I think it's 3-1 in the first showing of this matchup.
Yeah.
And Ole Miss, like, I just think this is the one team. Like, these guys know how to match everything Ole Miss is going to try, and those little early game advantage plays that we all talk about. Like CCG Glorp's going to know how to match lane swaps. They're going to know how to play, around not just playing for like kill hungry comps early, playing around the right objectives. This is the team that's going to be able to match Ole Miss in a lot of those capabilities. And while I think Ole Miss definitely have the ability they've shown it to win this series, I think the first showing is going to lean towards the much more potent roster with CCG Glorp. And this would be a little bit different for me because, like, obviously with CCG Glorp, the glaring hole is Vakken, but I also think Ole Miss's weakest point is also jungle.
Mm-hmm.
So I don't think there's enough of an avenue for them to really expose that in the first matchup. And I think CCG Glorp will get 3-1. But I do also believe this is the finals rematch. So
I actually disagree with you on Ole Miss's weakest point. I would go as far as to say it is actually worse for the side of Ole Miss, because I think their weakest role is top lane, and I think Zamudo can absolutely run. I think Zamudo can run straight into the ground. So that's the matchup that I'm really looking at for CCG Glorp. And you know what? I'm gonna go with a bold prediction here in this series, because I got a bold prediction for GFT, and I feel like I got to stick to it at this point. I'm gonna say it's CCG Glorp 3-0. Like I actually think they are just going to. I think Ole Miss are not prepared for how effective this team can actually be. I don't think Vakken is as much of a weakness as a lot of people make him out to be. And I do think that Phi Mini will at the very least be able to go even with Asilla going forward. So maybe he won't win against Asilla, because I think Asilla has much better hands than Phi Mini. But I do think like this should be a stalemate. Everywhere else should be in favor of CCG, though. Or at the very least, the jungle matchup won't be big enough, like Slayer said, for it to really make a difference.
Yeah, see, we got a couple of sides here, right? We got Slayer, who thinks that Vaken and Icelandic Hero are going to be a stalemate. You got Quax here, who thinks that Sabuto is going to gap Stray. And I'm the real enlightened one here because I have both these opinions. I think when you have...
Well, I mean, I also believe the Zamuto thing, guys. Come on. I mean, like, I just think it needed a point.
You guys just ran through pretty much everything I would have said roll by roll. I think Scary Jerry and Zyko up against Shogo and Rhino is the featured matchup. That's the one we're going to be on the lookout
100%.
for. I do think either one of those pairs can win on the day. Like I faintly favor Scary Jerry and Zyko, mostly just because I think Zyko's insane. But it definitely could spin in either direction, and I do think Shogo has the edge in team fighting. Like I think he's just so good at being able to pick his moments and play for his positioning and output damage, which is what you want a player in that position to be able to do. I do think the rest of the map ends up being closer and much more mirrored, the exception being Zamuto over Stray. And I think that's the X factor that really is going to make me come in here probably favoring CCG Glorp. I'll say 3-2 though. I think Ole Miss makes it close.
All right. And do we all believe this is the final? This will
I
rematch
do.
finals?
I mean, I do think that they're.
CCG.
I feel like whoever loses this matchup should realistically be able to run the other two teams, because we saw what happened when CCG played CCG Glorp. Not even close. Yeah. Right. And if they can demolish CCG like that, then they can sure as shit demolish GFT like that. So like, I think GFT and CCG esports is going to be a super close matchup again, right in the Tigers high. But regardless, I think there is like maybe 1 out of like 10 worlds where it isn't this in grand finals. Also, what did TDS have to say about the prediction?
3-2 Glorp.
All right, so it's
oh no, my bad. He is 3-2 Ole Miss in classic TDS fashion.
All right, there we go. TDS is the contrarian for this one. Yep. All right, but as we're closing out, we got to predict one final series, gentlemen. Team Colorcaster or team play-by-play?
I mean, like, dude, if we win a game, I'm happy. Like, I'm just happy to be here.
Dude, if I get to play a game, I'm going to be happy. Yeah. Because I'm not even confident I'll be able to get one in with the cast on Friday.
I think you'll get one in.
Yeah. If we start 15 minutes early, I'm willing to take the risk, right? These guys
time. I got news that Colorcasters beat Team Production 2-1.
Yeah, I mean, we're just
Yanni.
The fun...
With Yanni.
Yeah.
With Yanni. And
that's play-by-play player, that's our victory too.
We also didn't have Ferris because I believe Ferris is casting as we're recording this. So we are literally like 3/5 of what we're probably planning to run if we're going full throttle.
I'm just excited for the I'm excited for the play-by-play color matchup. I think that's the one I get to play in. I don't know, but I'm just excited.
I'm going right for you, buddy. One. Like I'm
sure you are, man. I'm sure you are, man. Like I'm gonna have fun with it. And then, but yeah, we're the show ponies, man. We're the one everyone laughs at, and I'm fine with it. I'm just happy to be here the first year.
Yeah, me too.
Give me a chance.
We'll see who else wins it.
Give us a chance, dude.
We have a chance, but like we're also the laughing stock. Like we can't.
We are. I just want. I'm gonna take us way back here. All right, way back in the Proving Grounds qualifier days. AOE, previous generation of AOE, ran a team called AOE Main Team. And that team was me and a bunch of other casters. It was like, because there were no rules for this is one of the worst run PGQ tournaments. So it was full on open, no rank requirement, no nothing. They took all comers in a single elimination kind of qualifier bracket. So me and a few other casters joined as kind of a meme. And we played against Rock Tribe Esports, which was a bunch of players who were actually like GM plus, but none of them are around anymore. Nobody relevant, nobody you would know. And we got our asses kicked, but I think like Dia went even or something. Like there's my point being here is that we can create entertainment. If we could have created entertainment in that series, playing against like literal players trying to qualify for Proving Grounds, team play-by-play can do okay today. I got a solo kill in that game too, so that's my goal here. I'm gonna get a solo kill in our
We'll make it
matchup against
entertaining.
Team Color. I don't who's their mid laner. Who am I playing against?
I think it's Miss Tebow.
Oh,
Yeah, yeah. So I
we'll see.
well, I did hear that I did hear from a certain head captain that he might sub in for mid lane if you play team.
Oh,
Color.
I
so
can
it might be
kick Hawk's
Hawk.
ass, dude. I could destroy Hawk.
It could be Hawk
I believe.
because yeah.
All right, give me. Hawk,
I'll
man.
leave it at that.
Bring
I'll
me
leave the
Hawk.
teasers at that.
Please bring me Hawk.
All right.
All right,
Let's-
yeah.
let's get out of here.
That's how we're gonna end the episode. All right, we're all sleepy, except for maybe Slayer. It's 2 hours earlier over there.
No, I'm getting a Marvel Rivals right after this, bro.
All right, I'm not. I'm calling it a night. So thank you everybody who's tuned on in. Tune in tonight. Aegis Champions League will be on the Aegis channel, where we will have the upper finals between Ole Miss and CCG Glorp. Probably not going to be a Salt Mine stream of the lower semis unless circumstances change. So hopefully those will be streamed elsewhere. Stay tuned to the Aegis Discord to try to find that out. And then we'll be back next week, Monday for the lower finals, Friday for the grand finals, and we will put a wrap on this season. So it's been a banger one, and you don't want to miss the end. But until then, thank you everybody for tuning in. We'll see you next time.